Hey, so my name is Miles Packard. So by taking a piece of candy, as you guys have said, you have mentioned to do something I would ask. So since I've given you a piece of candy, that's to say that you own it. Now, if you own it, you would like to be able to do whatever you would want with it. You could save it for now, or you could eat it now, you could save it for later, give it to someone. But what if I were to tell you that you could only eat it in an hour, and you could only eat half of it? Kind of takes fun out of it, doesn't it? But actually, what if I told you this little scenario isn't very far off from what a lot of HOAs do, homeowners associations. So if you were to own a car or something, it'd be nice to be able to paint it whatever color you want, put all kinds of body kits on it, make it look cool, put stereo systems. But a lot of homeowners associations work the same way, where they won't let you put certain things on your house. So according to Paul Boudreau, he's a professor of law at Stetson University, and in 2009 he said before HOAs, you could the general approach to owning a house was that as long as you didn't encroach on someone else's property or put someone else in harm's way, then you could do basically whatever you wanted to your house. Now, a lot of this isn't at all how it goes anymore. He brings in the idea of a man's house is a castle or whatever kind of thing. And my dad actually usually says that all the time. But so you should be able to do whatever you want to your house. And as I said, a lot of HOAs don't let you do this anymore. A lot of them will instead create harsh restrictions on stuff. So like you said, before owning a house, you'd live in a village, just paint it whatever color, add in whatever you want. But a lot of homeowners associations, they won't let you have any slides or even a shed in your backyard, a garden, anything like that. So Brian Sullivan, who's an anchor for Fox News, CNBC, and Bloomberg TV, reported in 2013 that HOAs obsess so much over the cleanliness and conformity in the neighborhood that if you refuse to do what an HOA says, if something's reported to them, you're met with the common phrase of "see you in court." A couple examples of this, actually, with things like swing sets and sheds, is Becky Rogers Peck. She had a pink wooden playhouse built in her backyard for her 4-year-old daughter's Christmas gift. So someone complained about it, and the HOA came in and said, "Hey, you have to take this down." She said that it didn't go against anything that she signed up for in the contract. It wasn't visible from the street. It was well kept and clean. But instead, they filed a lawsuit against her. Although it was eventually dropped, this is just an example of a lot of the ways that HOAs can come in and tell you what to do on your own property. Another person that has had issues with this is Candy Fry. She had a swing set in her backyard that had all kinds of stuff. It was similar to that one. It had swings, a slide, all this stuff. And it was fairly small, again, well kept. And people complained about it to the HOA. Now, she had it all even cemented into the ground. There was posts, all the posts were lined up with concrete. And she even was willing to compromise. She said, "Okay, well, I'll move it for you guys, and that's fine. I'll move it wherever you want. But as long as you split the cost with me." They said, no, we're not going to do that. You have to pay for all of it. So they took her to court. And again, this case was eventually dropped and it was left where it was. But again, these are just some of the examples of what HOAs can come in and tell you what to do. There's United States Attorney Lauren Wallace in July of 2018. She stated that about 1 in 5 Americans choose neighborhoods with a governing homeowners association. So 1 in 5 would be 20%. Imagine someone in your family wanted to go move and they decided to choose a house in an HOA. A lot of times people aren't aware of how many restrictions they can actually place, because a lot of these restrictions can even be modified after you sign the contract. So if this still seems like kind of a distant thing, like, oh, that won't happen to me kind of thing, well, I wasn't so lucky because this happened to my uncle. So my Uncle Eric, he has a story. He says, in 2016, the clubhouse in my community caught fire. After a recent investigation, it was discovered that the fire was caused by a shifting of the building's foundation. So if left untreated, the building would slide down the hill on which it was built. So since this community, and thus the clubhouse, was a part of an HOA, a series of meetings was held to decide what to do about the situation. It was decided that HOA was going to file a lawsuit against the land developer of the community. So the community was built by Ryan Homes, but they blamed the situation on the land developer, Gallenstein Brothers Incorporated. So an attorney was hired, and the two parties, the HOA and the developer, litigated for about 3 years, which was finally settled earlier this year. And he says the payout was minimal, covering basically the attorney fees. But in 2016, the HOA took out a private loan to cover the cost of the repairs while the case was still in court. Since the settlement covered only the attorney fees, the members of the HOA were left paying back a huge, nearly $500,000 loan to fix the clubhouse. So on his account, him and his wife were relatively new to the community when it happened, so they didn't attend any of the meetings that took place over it. So they didn't even know this had happened to the clubhouse until roughly a year after it happened. He said the building was 15 years old, so filing a lawsuit was a foolish move because it'd be hard to prove negligence on something that's 15 years old. Likewise, he questions the picking of the attorney. It could have been a kickback from a member of the HOA. So as a result of this big loan, his yearly HOA fees increased from $400 a year to $800. That's literally doubled his fees on something that he wasn't even a part of. So it increased for another 2 years until it was all paid off. So that just blows my mind on how he had no say in something, but because of the result that other people had to say on it, it doubled his fees for 2 years. So another thing, last speech I tried persuading people to buy solar panels because it's a really cost-efficient way to reduce climate change and to save yourself money. But so there's the solar panels, and under a lot of HOAs, you can't have solar panels, you can't have any sort of garden, you can't have a compost pile for your garden to have rich soil, you can't have sheds, can't have this or that. But according to Christina Caffrey, who's a graduate of the University of New Mexico School of Law, eco-friendly installations like solar panels and compost, clotheslines and stuff are often prohibited by HOAs. And this is just an example of some of them. Westerly subdivision, solar panels aren't allowed. Camelot, Cottleville, Missouri, solar collectors or wind generators prohibited. Peach Creek, compost devices prohibited, and you're not allowed to put a fan in front of your window if it's hot. Quail Cove in Arizona, clotheslines are prohibited. Crest Mountain prohibits gardens, window AC units, and outside enclosed dining, and there's plenty of more examples of this. So these just show some of the examples that you have when you decide to go for an HOA. So instead, I urge you to find someone through a private realtor company. This gives you a lot more freedom in what you can and can't do to your house. And there's still stuff like state and city regulations, but in comparison to HOAs, it is much, much more freedom to do this. So just imagine next time I were to go to give you a piece of candy, it would be a lot nicer and a lot more enjoyable if I didn't put all these restrictions on it. So if you work to get rid of these HOAs, you won't have any more issues with what you can and can't do to your house. It's your property, and again, becomes your kingdom.